Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are today. It is World Mental Health Month, an UN initiative aiming to address mental health issues in an empathetic way. It was with that in mind, body and soul, that Dr. Rasha Saeed, Deputy Chair of Saeed Foundation and founder of Toucan Project, invited us all here today in support of Brilliant Breakfast and the Princess Trust Women Supporting Women initiative, in order to not only raise clarity and awareness on wellness practices in life and in the workplace, but also raise funds to contribute to the Princess Trust reach and impact on young women's lives. Wellness is an active process of becoming aware and making choices towards a healthy and fulfilling life. It does involve health and fitness, and it also includes all other categories of life, such as family and friends, community, environment, love life, spirituality, career and work, money and finances, fun and recreation, personal growth and learning, and so on. Wellness is more than being free from illness. It is a dynamic process of change, growth, and the quality of access to opportunities we have and what we choose, the choices we make with it, which englobes another very important topic we'll be touching upon today, equality and inclusion. Desiree, executive coach and leadership strategist, will be leading us today in conversations that guide us in looking a little deeper into some of our options where it comes to taking care of ourselves and ultimately one another. Take it over.
Here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on this beautiful planet. I appreciate the intro that you have given us, Lara, because it's all really, really relevant to the conversation that we're going to have today. And before I get us started, I want to share a little bit with you about what the Princess Trust Youth Index actually has found over several years. And that's related to young women because they tend to show lower overall well-being and are often much more likely to feel anxious and stressed. So for example, they have found that 25% of young women said that the pandemic has really destroyed their career hopes. 23% of those young women do not feel confident about their future in their workplace. 54% also say it's harder to ask for employment help, as they notice that really everyone needs it right now. And for those young people that are not in education, employment, or training, 48% say they can't see an end to their unemployment. And 65% agree that the longer they are jobless, the more it impacts the feeling that they have about themselves. So talking about self-confidence. And young women actually are more likely to feel like their work and career aspirations have been damaged, with actually 66% of young women saying getting a new job feels almost impossible in this environment. Why? Because competition is high. And that's in comparison to 54% of men. So we thought it was really important to share some of these statistics as we get us started today. And before we start really into this conversation about wellness, diversity, and inclusion, I want to introduce this fantastic panel that we have here today. I'm going to start off introducing Aggie Mutuma. She's a CEO and lead inclusion director. Erica Jung, she's a teacher, guide, and wellness entrepreneur. Lara Augusta, she's a life and leadership coach. And Mamta Saha, psychologist and entrepreneur. So what we're going to do here today is we will really address some of the possibilities for change by all of us sharing experiences, knowledge, and insights that are based on diversity, inclusion, and well-being. Without further ado, good morning, everyone. Welcome, and let's get it started. I want to start with you, Aggie. You are such an experienced and passionate inclusion specialist. You're an HR leader, you're an executive coach with such a keen passion for supporting organizations as they build cultures where everyone can really thrive. Yet what we find that today our socio-cultural and gender bias continues to create huge barriers for many people. Some of the struggles that you have found, and I'm sure many of us have found, include ensuring equal economic opportunities, educational equity, and an end to gender-based violence. So Aggie, why don't you share with us, in your experience, what are some of the main challenges that people face in the workplace today? And then what can actually companies do to help not only listen to those concerns, but also address those internally?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Desiree. And thank you all for having me this morning and for being here, or afternoon or evening, depending where you are in the world. So I think I'd say, as I think about gender specifically, the key issues that individuals face are around perceptions. You know, we've grown up possibly in a world, in a space where there were specific roles for women, specific roles for men, whether that be in terms of careers or in terms of roles that people play within the family. So undoing a lot of that, yes, we're having great conversations, and yes, we are moving in the right direction, but undoing a lot of that does take time, and it is taking time in people's minds. So what that means is, you know, when women in the workplace either would like to work part-time or want to do something different, or they don't want to work part-time or they don't want to do something different, there are some stigmas attached to that. An example is there's this expectation, I guess it's called pronatalism, which is this expectation that women should have a baby, they should want to have a baby, they should want to get married. So those who take different choices or aren't able to have a family as yet face some sort of discrimination and sort of barriers around that. But equally, when women do want to work part-time, there's a perception that their careers therefore don't matter. They don't necessarily get put forward for the great projects. They don't get seen as someone who's ambitious, and maybe they are passed over for promotions. And they're also seen as less committed. You know, for a lot of people, less, although getting paid less, by the way, and usually when you work part-time, you actually work more, there's a perception that you therefore are less committed. Then there are practical issues such as what organizations might call office housework. There's an expectation that it's the woman who will maybe order lunches. It's the woman who will take notes in meetings. That happens so often right now. And maybe it's the woman who will, I don't know, sort out teas and coffees and things like that. So again, those perceptions that people have without necessarily knowing maybe that they're doing it. And I think a lot of these things come from unawareness. I don't think that, you know, men or people are necessarily going out there to discriminate or to treat people differently. It's that unawareness. We've just grown up like that, so they take that to the workplace. That's why events like this are so important because it's about raising awareness and getting people to really think and shift their mindset and question themselves. Why am I asking this particular person to take the notes all the time as the leader? Actually, why don't we rotate it so that everybody takes the notes? Why don't we rotate the whole lunch thing, the ordering, all those kinds of things? So that's why these events are so important. So what can organizations do? One, raise awareness. So events like these, absolutely beautiful organizations, definitely attending them, and men and women, because we all have the same biases too. It's not just men who are doing these or have these biases, we have them too, attending events like these. And then also, I always talk to organizations about speaking to your people, have a conversation, understand what it's like to work in your workplace, understand what those discrete challenges are in your specific workplace. Some of them are industry-wide, some of them are specific to your organization, and some of them are specific to certain teams. And then look at your data. I feel like I've been talking a long time now, so I'm going to come to an end, but also look at your data. What does your data tell you? What does your leadership team look like? Is there a good gender balance? What do your middle managers look like? Is there a good gender balance? And I'll full stop there. Many more, but I'll full stop there for now.
Thank you, Aggie. That's wonderful just to hear the work that you're doing and helping and raising that awareness for all of us, right? Not only for a certain group of individuals, but for all of us to realize those biases that we've grown up with, that have been instilled in us, and to just learn this is within us and how we can actually change that perception that we have. Thank you, Aggie. Mamta, I want to move on to you. So you have been a corporate and media psychologist for over 15 years, and you have regularly contributed on the BBC and Sky News for your views on life stories, and actually also the Eastern community. And then on top of that, to all your accomplishments, in the beginning of this year, you've spoken in the TEDx British University Dubai stage. So We've seen you out on TEDx, which is fantastic. And then, unfortunately, not long after having done that, you were actually diagnosed with dyslexia and extreme executive functioning. I would be curious, what kind of impact has that diagnosis actually had on you since then, and what have you done about it?
Well, thank you so much, Desiree. It's so great to be here with everybody else on this panel today. So thank you for having me. So yes, I got this diagnosis earlier this year, and initially I wasn't surprised actually, because my journey had felt really difficult. I felt like I was pushing a bucket of water uphill for many years, and I just summarized that actually struggle was normal, and it feels this hard for everybody else. And so when I did get clarity over this dyslexia and executive functioning, I actually for the first time felt like someone had recognized that struggle. And so initially it was no surprise. And then I went through an array of feelings, which were, I really felt annoyed with myself. I felt annoyed with the teachers around me who hadn't picked up on it. Nobody had ever noticed it or supported. I hadn't even had the courage to be able to articulate what it was that was going on for me. And that lasted a couple of months, and it wasn't like me at all, because my optimism and my resilience and grit had just got me through any bouts of self-doubt or difficulty and challenge. And so for me to sit there and dwell in this feeling of like, oh my God, this is really hard, and it's no wonder I found life so difficult. And then I started to come to terms and notice where I was struggling, and started to share it with people who I felt that who I was working with, Aggie and Lara, who I felt very comfortable sharing it with, and I felt very nervous doing so, because again, it wasn't like me to ever admit a fault, say that I was struggling or needed any support in any way, because I just developed these coping mechanisms, like a bit like a swan, looking smooth and all good, but underneath it was chaotic. And so when I started to share, I had this apprehension, sharing so transparently what I felt were flaws. But actually, what it unveiled for me was the huge amount of support, compassion, and empathy that existed within my community, which made me feel at ease and comfortable with just shining from a place of my strengths, and becoming more and more comfortable with sharing what was going on for me and where I was struggling. So I wouldn't say I'm completely through the feeling, vulnerable about sharing it phase, but I'm getting better. Thank you to the strong women around me like Aggie and Lara. And for you guys bringing this up and having a conversation about it. It was very tough for me. But the community, the support has enabled me to feel like it's okay to share, and I will continue to do so. It almost was wrong not to now, which is why I'm so glad we're talking about it, because when I then work, I feel like I'm playing to my strengths and nothing is hidden, and I'm supported.
Fantastic, Mamta. Thank you for sharing your story and for being vulnerable here with us. To think about, it's only been 10 months and you're already out here and sharing this so vulnerably is fantastic. So if you had, I think you shared a little bit in what you just said, but if you had one specific advice for the women out there that I think we often all struggle with, oh, this all got to look, it's got to look great on the outside, and then inside it's almost tearing us apart. What advice do you have for a young woman out there to maybe do something differently?
Well, something that I've really learned, Desiree, and something that I'll hold very dear and close to me, is that when you give yourself permission to be vulnerable, you enable others to do the same. And so I've been in these conversations with people where I've been sharing things about what's going on for me, and suddenly they all share something that they might be going through, like, suffering from depression or stress or struggling with workplace politics or whatever it might be. And so that distance I once felt with people, actually it disappears. It makes me feel closer because actually I'm being true to myself, and there's no such thing as perfection. And I think so many of us women, especially women doing the sort of thing that we do, we're supporting others, we're coaching, we're enabling. I'm a psychologist, so I thought I had to have it all figured out. Actually, no one has it figured out. And when you start sharing in places where you feel like you can, and there's trust and community, then you enable others, you give others the permission to do the same.
Thank you, Mamta. Vulnerability. And I think vulnerability is such an important topic for all of us, whether men, women, it does not matter. I think vulnerability has for a long time had not a place in the workplace or even in some sort of public setting. For whatever reason, there's always been this perception I've got to have it all figured out. Otherwise, I'm, like Mamta said, I'm not perfect. And then the question is, what is actually perfect? So it doesn't exist, right?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mamta. Lara, I'm so excited to get to share the space here with you as well today. And you have such an interesting, multi-passionate background. So you started off in your education and international relations. You worked for over a decade with the Olympic Games. So you did everything from global staff training, events production, high-end hospitality, and bespoke customer service. And on top of that, you have worked all over the world. You studied in Brazil, you were in England, Canada, China, Russia, so many different countries. And right now you're based in the US, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So I'm curious, how has this journey actually contributed to your life and leadership coaching practice?
Well, it has widened my capacity to stay flexible, adaptive, and cherish and hold space for cultural diversity. And it has also kept me curious and open and eager to sustain. I am always learning frame of mind, and that has also grown my capacity for connection, for compassion, and to understand different ways people operate, communication and relationship dynamics, and with that, the ability to assist clients in finding for themselves what best resonates with their own set of values on their path to personal and professional success.
I love it. So what, if you had to bring it down to one thing, what do you think has been your biggest learning on your personal journey with all these different experiences that you've had in your life?
Curiosity. Just, stay curious and to stay open, because we might have so many things that constructs our ways, that we view life. Mm-hmm. But if we stay open to, other points of views and how others perceive and experience the world, we get to learn so much more, just stay interested, and stay open.
Yeah, curiosity, vulnerability, curiosity. I'm just taking a couple of keywords here first to hopefully take away from this session today. Now, you mentioned curiosity. So obviously I'm a coach. I have curiosity too. Why do you choose to go by your compound name, Lara Augusta? I'm sensing there's a stand there.
Well, like I said, we see the world through the lenses we've acquired throughout our lives. So our identities are strongly tied to where we have been born, to what families, under what cultural settings, values, and so on. So I believe we come into this world as pure self, and immediately, boom, like you're a daughter or a son of, a family member to, a friend to, a student of, a partner of, a significant other to, a professional of, a mother, a father. And one of the ways we might express, our ancestral lineage, and with that, our belief systems to the world, is through our last names. So, which in paper, all of mine remain. But while honoring, all that I'm connected to and all that I commit to in my daily life, this has become my simple, small way of exercising, being in touch with myself. My daily reminder to self also not to lose touch with whom I might be or who I am really in truth once I'm disconnected from all this commitments and attachments in life, like, people or expectations, roles, storylines. And that's probably actually even, one of my nuggets for the day. Learn who you are and what do you value, what motivates you, the reason behind you do what you choose to do, and how you show up in the world and how you respond and not react in your interactions with others. That will help you define your path and your boundaries, what you're willing to put up with, what you're not willing to put up with. Who do you welcome into your life, who remains, who needs to go. Those are some of the premises to healthy relationships with self and in your personal life, in your professional life, with which ultimately have a great impact, on anyone's well-being, how you show up, how others show up, And at some point of your life, we're all called to lead. It doesn't matter. I mean, at some point we're, either which, are a game with friends or a project or, lead a family, a team, a company. But I encourage myself, to learn how to lead myself first. And if that inspires anyone else, bonus. But and also know, that this might be a progressive and ongoing journey. We just need to be willing to step into it with awareness, more consciously.
Thank you, Lara. What an important message. Finding ourselves, finding who we are at the core. We are born into this world. We grow up with the perceptions, with the values and belief systems of those that are around us. We are being taught certain things in our life, and then eventually it's the time for us to realize, who are we actually at the core? If we strip all of that away, am I really that person? And what does it mean to be connected truly with myself and being in alignment with myself? Such great nuggets today. I'm just building here: awareness, curiosity, vulnerability, finding true self. And I think that really leads me to you, Erica, because you really have undergone a journey yourself that has really moved you from believing what was expected of you, so that world that you were born into one that has really allowed you to discover more about yourself using that curiosity and really deep exploration. And that in many ways has really built the foundation for what is now your main practice. So would you tell us a little bit more about that? What are some of the things that you have learned from working in Western medicine, as well as the traditional medicine? And how do you think that has shaped who you are today, your messaging, and the work that you do?
Well, thank you. I think that the best message to take away from my journey and the journeys that I've helped support other people in is that one size does not fit all. We live in a society. It's inevitable that we homogenize, that we kind of have a majority and then there's a minority. And it's really important, especially as young women, to recognize that that is a natural construct of the spaces around us. It's a very humanistic characteristic that we display. But that being said, that does not mean that what is around you is what you have to be. Similar to what all the other women have said today, it's really about exploration. It's about really reading the temperature and saying, this is the environment that I am in, but I'm going to go and explore. I'm going to get on a plane. I'm going to go try a different restaurant. I'm going to hang out with different people. I'm going to try different occupations. I'm going to stay open and I'm going to stay curious. And I recognize that I am a unique individual, and that while I might derive inspiration from those around me, I don't have to be exactly like those around me. I'm really unique, and we all have our own individual fingerprints, right? and our journeys have the permission to be completely unique, just like our own fingerprints. So that's the largest thing, is we're always trying to fit into something, right? And you hear this a lot when I do work with people. It's like, where do I belong? Where do I fit? It's really not about that. I'm saying, you're trying to find the box. I'm saying knock down the walls. There is really no box. It's just the box that we have created for ourselves. So what happens when it's not us trying to fit into a mold, but us making our own? And a journey of self-exploration, a journey of finding your purpose, to finding your voice, finding, your community, all of those things really needs the essentials of the freedom to create it. And if it doesn't exist, make it. There is no rules. I think Mamta had said it earlier. Nobody knows what they're doing. That's absolutely 100,000% true. I have worked with, public figures, CEOs, stay-at-home moms, stay-at-home dads, like all walks of lives of people, and literally, quite literally, hung out with sages in the Himalayas. Nobody knows what they're doing. And there is no set rules. So have the freedom, create the essential space for yourself to go and explore, and to realize that it's not about fitting into something per se. It's just about finding the space that fits with you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Erica. What a powerful message.
Actually, may I interject here? Because Erica said something that really struck a chord for me, and it reminded me actually one of our conversations we've had before, Desiree, when she mentioned in regards to how so many people go through their life struggling to fit in or try to fit into a box. I mean, I hope you don't mind me putting in the spotlight over there, okay? Because Desiree, you've worked for several years in the aviation industry, which has taken you to really countless places around the world and allowed you interactions with a multitude of backgrounds. And as a coach, you've worked with leaders and teams, in Fortune 500 companies, as well as to mid-sized business. And we know, we're all learning as we go, as Erica said. And we have a very multicultural background on this webinar. We have India, UK, Brazil, US, and you were born in Argentina, right? And raised between Argentina and Germany. And now you're also living in the US. So those are perceivably very different cultures. And we speak of diversity and inclusion in ways that seems to only tick the box for whom historically might not have had everything going for them. If I may touch on what maybe extra, a little sensitive topic, by appearance alone, one could assume you potentially had most things, most things going for you, except that might not have always been the case, when it comes to try to, accommodate all this, different layers, and bringing yourself with all of those layers into the world. So what might have been some of, of the impact? Sorry, what might some have been possibly, some of the challenges, for potential assumptions over your background, and what might have been some of the impact of that, in your growth and development, and how have you dealt with it? Or that was long, but
it's quite interesting because as long as I can remember, people would always ask me, so what are you now? Are you Argentinian? Are you German? What are you? And so in my mind, I was always like, I'm really none of them. But I always, so with this questioning that I got all throughout my life, was always like, okay, so I gotta either be German or I gotta be Argentinian. Then I moved to the US. Then everybody was like, well, you gotta adjust to how things are in the US. So then I tried to fit into that box that Erica was talking about in the US. And it was a painful journey. And I didn't know what I was doing to myself because it all happened subconsciously. But it got to a point where it was so painful because I wasn't who I am at the core, what you were talking about earlier, Lara, I was trying to fit the mold of whoever was around me. And it drove me so much that it almost drove me to a burnout, because I didn't show up as who I was. So everything was pushing, was hard, was just forcing certain things. And I came to the realization that I am who I am. I'm not American, I'm not German, I'm not Argentinian, but I'm a version of all three of them, plus all the experiences and influences I've had throughout my life, having worked all over the world. And this is who I am. And I'm not going to compromise on who I am any longer, because I need to be able to show up in alignment with myself. Mm-hmm. And other people get to make the choice whether they want to take part in that and be around me or not, right? So to your point, Lara, who are the people that are staying? Who are the people that are going? And I've really become very, very comfortable with having my German sides, with having my Argentinian side, and with having my American ways and all of that too, and allowing myself to show up in that way. So I think that for me was one of the biggest lessons I've had in my life. You know, and nowadays people ask me, so what are you gravitating towards? What culture? None of them. They're all somewhere in me, and that's who I am. And people just look at me, but then eventually they're like, okay, I get it, and I like it, and I understand. So really understanding that we get to carve out our, not really even box, but our place, and to Erica's point, to knock down the walls of what is expected from us and showing up as who we truly are.
Yeah.
It's, if I may, if that's okay, I think it's really interesting. The question's really interesting, but also hearing your take on it and your experience, Desiree, because I think it was Erica who said it, that there is this need for people to put people in boxes, or even for us to put ourselves in boxes, and that tends to be because as humans we want to belong to something. We seek connection, we seek that. So sometimes connection makes us go towards something. Sometimes connection means that we look at others and think, are they connected to me? They're not, so we're going to put them in a box somewhere else. But hearing you talk about your experience having to being asked to choose whether you're German, whether you're Argentinian, whether you're from the US, I think most of us can probably speak to very similar experiences. And certainly at the moment it's Black History Month, and I've been posting on LinkedIn, which is huge for me because I don't usually talk about myself too much on LinkedIn because it's a bit embarrassing, but I'm doing it. I'm making it happen. And there's one post around me saying I'm Black and British. Usually those things are seen as almost mutually, completely separate. There are people out there who believe that if you're Black, you can't be British, you've got to be from somewhere else. But also in terms of growing up in the UK, you've got your culture from where you're from. My parents are born and raised in Zimbabwe. So there's trying to hold on to that, but equally trying to hold on to the culture you're growing up in, and then thinking, where do you fit? But also outside of the cultural space as well, there is also the piece around roles. Are you a mother or are you professional? A lot of women feel like they have to choose. And, just like you said, Desiree, for me, I am Black and British and all sorts of awesome things. I am also a mother and a professional. There's no need to choose. So I think if we are leaving sort of lasting thoughts or things we want people to hold on to, I think for all the women, young or not, whatever age you are, it's about you don't have to subscribe to the putting you in a box thought process. There are no boxes, there are no walls. It's all endless opportunities and possibilities. You can just be you and be yourself and be who you're meant to be on this earth.
Yeah. Fantastic.
If I can piggyback on that really quickly, because I'm so fired up and inspired by all of you women. And what you're just adding to this, it's like the best pie. We're just all putting great pieces into it. I want to also extend just some experience as well to young women as they're going through this process. I think oftentimes we glamorize the process and we make it seem really easy and we make it seem really effortless. And if it doesn't really happen that way, we think we're doing something wrong. And I really would like to take that moment to just destigmatize this entire process, layer onto what everyone has said, and say, When you are stepping into a space that is unknown, when you are starting to resist some of the social pressures and internal pressures that maybe we have internalized that we're not aware of, it is really uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable. It is challenging. It's going to be sometimes like a roller coaster with its ups and its downs. It's going to have you doubting things one moment and feeling completely connected and elated the next moment. This is normal. This is the process when there is no handbook of how to be. When you say, there is no box, I get to be my own unique self. I get to create whatever it is that I want to experience in this lifetime, then there really is no other like guideline for you to go by. And that in of itself has a bit of uncertainty. So what I'm bringing this up for is the purpose to, when you run into this inevitably, which it will, do not get discouraged. Just know when to rest in the process, know when to lean onto community, use that vulnerability, talk to people, share in this experience, support one another through this, but don't quit in that. It is very, very normal, and it will feel incredibly different to go kind of a little bit, say, against the grain, if you will. And that's just part of that shedding process. You know, just like when a snake starts to shed its skin, it grows to the point where it's too large for the skin it currently has. And that's not comfortable until the point where that skin actually like bursts off of it, right? So that's that layer. So just lean into that, lean into your tools, lean into your community, but know that that is completely normal, and know it is not supposed to be perfect, effortless, or Instagrammable. Okay. So just keep going.
I love that, Erica. Yes, I think we all can share our fair share of, may I call it muddiness? I don't know if that's even a word, but it's muddy. It's not linear. It's not a linear process. It's a process where you doubt yourself, where you might get to the point where like, forget about it. I'm just going to continue doing what I've been doing up to this point. But the end result of it, it's so worth it. It's everything that Erica, that Lara, that Mamta, Aggie have shared here, which was just a short amount of time, but in my opinion, so rich. And as we wrap this up, just in the interest of time today, I want to just summarize a couple of key takeaways that have been mentioned here today. So I think Ari just really clearly talked about awareness, and how awareness, not only for ourselves, but also within our organizations, communities, is really, really important. We talked about the curiosity, remaining curious about other people, how they show up, who they are, curious about ourselves. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I feeling this way? Asking ourselves those questions. Mamta talked so beautifully about vulnerability, being able to share ourselves, our journeys where we have struggled, and really leaning onto that community. Knowing ourselves, right? Lara said, connecting with our true self, who we are, and being aligned with that. Beautiful insight. And then Erica, ultimately, I think you're this don't fit into a box, break down the walls was so incredibly powerful. We want to encourage you to connect with yourself and have the courage and the vulnerability to break down those walls. And then ultimately understanding it's not a linear process. It's a journey. It's not always easy, but it's possible. Whatever you believe that you want to, who you are, what you want to achieve, is possible. So with that, I think I want to wrap it up for today. I want to thank you all so very much for your, it was so incredibly meaningful, these contributions. So thank you all so very much for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you all, ladies, and Desiree, for such a wonderful job as hostess. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And also, before we go, just reminding everyone that if there's anything that has been, we only touched the surface of so much that can be covered. And, if there's anything that anyone wants to have, extended, developed, explained. If there's anyone clarified, if anyone has any questions on any of it, you can reach any of us. I'm going to put up a screen here with our information. And also do not forget to show up to the Brilliant Breakfast website and contribute in whatever ways you can.
Yes.
All the funds are going straight to the Princess Trust, Women Supporting Women, and initiatives. And so if anyone would like to know anything or, for develop anything that has been discussed here today, here's how you can reach each one of us. And also, I had this the screen here for the Brilliant Breakfast website. That's it. Thank you so much. And also one last reminder of how it is important for us to offer, compassion and grace and understanding to ourselves and one another in the process, because we're here, we're learning, we're learning, and if we stay open to that, and if we are able to offer ourselves that, we're a lot less hard on ourselves, and that definitely has a huge impact on our well-being and how we show up, for ourselves and for one another.
Absolutely. We never stop learning, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Blessings on your journeys.